Mark down the back, he places him. Holy mackerel, he got free!
Good morning, Maple Leaf fans. Welcome. First episode here of a new Maple Leaf podcast called the Leafs Lounge. We are ecstatic to be with you today. My name is Josh Lieberman, and I'm sitting here with my co-pilot, Justin Kudo. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you. And you got the last name right. I was kind of worried you might have butchered it a bit. I've heard Ko2 before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I totally went cold because we didn't rehearse that. So I just kind of went with my instinct there, went with my gut. So I'm glad I nailed it.
Awesome.
First time, love it. So guys, hopefully we have people tuning in. I'm obviously not expecting a big audience first time, but hopefully we can kind of gain your support. We're two diehard Leaf fans, like I'm sure a lot of the people who will tune in are. Obviously, Leafs are we bleed blue and white, so I think we can come here and give some really good takes, good perspectives on the team, as well as some NHL topics as well. And we obviously have a comment board where if you are tuning in, we'd love you to make your comments, tell us where we've gone wrong, because we definitely will at some time. So obviously we're kind of coming with that fan perspective. So would really love to hear what you guys think about what we're throwing out there. And yeah, we can kind of talk about those comments on air. So that's our intro, Justin. Let's get into the topics today. We got a full plate. So let's kind of kick things off. Probably the topic of the week, even the month, you could say. If you're an Ottawa Senator fan, it's probably the topic of the year for them, and it's pretty much their Stanley Cup. Talking about the Morgan Rielly, we now know the suspension. He got 5 games. Obviously, Senator fans and even any non-Leaf fan has been up in arms since the beginning when they saw the hit. You know, this thing should get him 20 games. It's a vicious hit and everything. And it's been fun to kind of see the talking back and forth, the battle between Leaf fans and the rest of social media, trying to kind of obviously Leaf fans defend our position. When you saw the hit in the moment, what was your kind of prediction on how many games it should be?
I said he's getting suspended right away.
Right, for sure.
There wasn't a doubt in my mind that he was going to get at least something.
Yeah.
5 games seems like a lot, but considering it started out with an in-person hearing, it definitely could have been 7.
Totally.
Or more. I saw a lot of people saying that they wanted it to be 10 plus, and this is absolutely ridiculous. But
yeah,
I think the biggest problem with the suspension, of course, 5 games, I think maybe 2 or 3 was more fair, because the precedent set by the player safety has just been absolutely all over the place. It's brutal. You see a 2-hander from Trouba to Trent Frederick's head is a $5,000 fine.
Right.
And then freaking Tuesday night, Allmark 12-6 slashes a Tampa Bay Lightning player in the head, gets a $5,000 fine. And where's the consistency? I don't know.
Yeah, it's all over the map. And, I'm not as much on that side of a lot of Leaf fans that are like, oh, he's a Leaf player, so he's obviously going to get more than he deserves because they've always want to make an example, or there's always that, unfair treatment of Leaf players. I mean, if you look historically at some of our players who have got suspended, you've got the Austin Matthews cross-check on Rasmus Dahlin. You've got the Jason Spezza that got 6 games. Both him and Matthews were first-time offenders, as was Rielly. You start kind of understanding where that might be coming from and the anger that a lot of Leaf fans have. Because, to your point, you see stuff like the Trouba one, even the David Perron that got 6 games, and I don't think the Rielly was as bad as Perron. And now I get it. He got 1 fewer game, but I think from my perspective, after seeing the hit, obviously he got the 5-minute and the game. You knew he was getting suspended, to your point. But, my thoughts were 2, 3. I'm like, because he's a Leaf, maybe it will be 4. But that was kind of my max. And I think hearing like other, whether it's other podcasts, the guys on Overdrive, Elliot Friedman, a lot of them were of the belief that it shouldn't have been more than 2 or 3. So I was kind of surprised that he got the in-person hearing.
Well, I compared it to the other 5-game suspension that came down, which was the Gallagher one a few weeks ago, where he absolute chicken wings a guy in the head, which is an intent to injure. And then the guy,
that was a spicy hot chicken wing.
And then he did get a concussion as well. So he actually did cause an injury and everything.
Right.
And he only got 5 games.
Totally.
When you compare it side by side to what Rielly did, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seems like I think that a lot of the times the league wants to not have a bias against the Leafs so badly that they go too far the other way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that for sure. And like, I think a lot of people were talking about, because all Leaf fans brought up, well, yeah, Greg, as soon as he got hit, kind of got right back up, and he was at practice the next day. So obviously not much harm was done. And I get it. The devil's advocate is like, you can't just do it based on the damage, you know? Like, if the guy is getting back up, it doesn't mean he didn't still get cross-checked to the face. It just means the guy who hit him was lucky it didn't do more damage. But at the same time, you look at how things are decided in the court system, that's usually what kind of is a big factor, because that tells you what kind of force was with that hit. And you can even see when you look at the replay, like Rielly kind of, as he makes contact to the guy's face, his hand comes off the stick, because I think he's like, oh shit, like my stick is riding up. Yeah, you can tell that he's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to do here. Heat of the moment, you're not going to really give the guy a hall pass for it. You got to have control, and that's always what, makes a penalty happen. It's not about, well, did you try to do it? Well, I don't care. You did it. So I get it. He's accountable for it, but you can tell that intent to injure probably was not there to the extent of like the David Perron, the Brandon Gallagher, Yeah,
especially since if you watch the replay, the initial contact's with the shoulder, and then it rides up from the shoulder to the face. Totally. So just based off that evidence alone, I thought they would have said, okay, it wasn't intent to injure at all. It was intent to send a message, right? And I think at least definitely that message did get across. And I'm really interested to see how the Leafs respond to this, because I kind of see this kind of close to the Jets situation from a couple of years ago, after the Jets were like, did their whole celebration like they won the Stanley Cup, where they're like passing around the helmet, victory.
Yeah.
All that.
Is there anything better than beating the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, exactly. And they haven't beat us since.
Right.
So I think the Leafs, they do take mental notes, even though a lot of the media tries to paint them as soft.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a perfect example of us just not being soft at all.
In that moment. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that we're a very soft team anymore, really. Of course, there's instances where you would like the team to be more physical and stand up for one another.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like you see it more and more every time.
I mean, I think for me, where in terms of it, and I would agree, I don't think we're that soft team that maybe were even a few years ago. They've definitely added some grit, guys like Bertuzzi, Simone Benoit. But for me, it's all about the guys who are going to be on the ice at key moments, and like, what sort of game do they play? Do they win puck battles? Do they go into the corners on the forecheck and make sure that they get that puck off a defender? And I don't often see that from guys like Nylander, Marner, and that's always been kind of an issue that I've had with this core group, is it's not that I don't think they're trying to win or they don't have that will to win. Obviously, that's a silly narrative that I think some more casual Leaf fans would have, like, oh, like Marner, Nylander, they don't care about winning. No, obviously that's not what I'm saying here, but it just feels like there's a little bit of a lack of commitment to winning that puck, getting that puck back at all costs by some of the guys that are paid money to really make sure they're impacting the game as much as possible. And that's probably more where I feel this soft tag comes, that, when push comes to shove, if 2 minutes to go in the game and you need a goal, I don't have that same level of confidence with guys like Marner and Nylander to do whatever it takes to get that puck into the opposition net because of just how they play. It's usually a little bit more perimeter game, not kind of like digging into the corner to get the puck.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Nylander, I don't really want Nylander in the corner. I don't think that's where he belongs. I think he's more suited to be at the top of the circle where he's going to get shots off. Marner has a different kind of style of puck battles because he's not exactly like a body position guy. He's all stick.
Yeah.
Right? But he's also really good with the stick and finds a way to like strip guys of the pucks a lot without taking penalties, which is absolutely ideal. And in end of game situations, I agree with you. The only net front presence is really Tavares, and he's also not very feisty. He can easily get pushed off his spot.
Yep.
Which you would like to see more of, especially as your captain. You want to have more pride.
Agreed.
But I feel like, from what you were saying, they do score a lot of goals in the final 2 minutes. That is something.
For sure. They do find a way because the talent wins out. I think when we're talking about like, how does that translate to playoffs, which we obviously know, historically hasn't worked out very well for this team. And that series against Florida, that felt like a prime example of being up against a team where their guys who are on the ice most often, whether it's your Sam Bennett, your Reinhardts, your Matthew Tkachuks, your Barkovs, these guys feel like they're doing a little bit more to get that puck and to make, to give themselves some scoring chances and possession. And it's I'm not only going to blame our forward group. I feel like in terms of our defensive zone play, a lot of times the puck seems to just stay in our own end because you've got, whether it's Brody, Liljegren, Gio, Rielly, a lot of times just making very soft plays. Like instead of just trying to get it off the glass and out of the zone, it's a lot of like 10-foot passes to try and maintain possession. And I get it. That's probably more how they're coached. But I'm finding a lot of times this team has a lot of struggles winning those board battles. And that contributes to a lot of not only turnovers, but pucks having to get fished out of our net. Well,
you brought up the Florida series, and I feel like that's been such an overreaction.
I probably shouldn't have done that. We don't need to dwell on the past.
It's such an overreaction from Leaf fans, and I just want to say it. Like I think the main reason why we lost is because our big guys didn't score big goals, and we ran into a goalie who was having an absolute fluke of a run. Bobrovsky was having a fluke of a run, and we couldn't find a way to score. The main guys that you pay $40 million, they need to find a way. I don't care if the goalie stops every puck you throw at him. You have to find a way to score a goal in that situation.
100% there. 100%.
Right? The defense is saying the Leafs need defense after watching the last playoffs is ridiculous. I think from what was it? Game 6 versus Tampa versus when we got eliminated against Florida. I don't think we scored more than 3 goals in a game.
But in the playoffs, are you expecting to? Playoffs, you need to win 3-1 games. You need to win 2-1 games, and it doesn't feel like, and some of it is goaltending too. I thought Samsonov, he definitely had his moments in the Tampa Bay series, but other than maybe game 6, the elimination game, Samsonov wasn't stealing us any games, and Vasilevsky didn't either. The goalies weren't good in that series. But with the Leafs, it always feels like, you need to score 4 goals to win a hockey game. And that's what I loved about how they played against the Blues Tuesday, because it was one of those games where it felt like team defense was better than it's been I don't want to say all year, but it could have been close to one of their better defensive games all year. But in the playoffs, we've never really seen, I get where you're coming from, because if you look at the stats in terms of the goals allowed, yeah, the Leafs have been a top defensive team for pretty much every year Sheldon Keefe has been here, even though we've had, not exactly the biggest names on our blue line. But when it comes to playoffs, you need to find a way to hold a team to 1, 2 goals. And for me, I don't think a blue line of Liljegren, Gino, Brody is capable of defending to the extent you need if you're going up against, it might be Florida again, might be the Bruins. To me, I think there's like 2 different ways to talk about, well, how good is your defense? I don't think it's like bad, but I think if you're trying to talk about being a Stanley Cup contender, to me,
you need that guy. You need another guy.
Totally, that minute eater, right? And without that, to me, when I look at other Stanley Cup contenders, that's where I view our defense is just not nearly good enough.
Yeah, like when you could, obviously, if you compare our defense to the likes of Colorado, Dallas, Vegas, Boston, Carolina. Even though I don't view Carolina as a Stanley Cup contender at all. So
they're on the fringe for me.
I think a lot of people do. For Carolina, I just don't think they have the star power. They do it every year.
The goaltender.
No, nor the goaltending, yeah. But I just they don't, like, you see it every year. They play amazing in the regular season, and then when they actually need goals,
they can
never get them.
That. Yeah, I agree. I don't have Carolina as my top 5. No,
but yeah, if look at Dallas, 6 guys. They have 6 guys deep.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas is 6 guys deep. That's why they're 2 really good teams.
For sure.
Leafs have maybe 3 guys they can rely on.
Yeah. And I think one of those 3 guys is a guy who you wouldn't have expected, Simone Benoit.
Yeah.
And, to me, like, I was worried when he first started, like, playing. He wasn't getting a lot of minutes and it was kind of sheltered. So I'm like, okay, like, Benoit's doing great. But once they end up needing him more or playing him more, we're going to see his play fall off. But that hasn't been the case. I think he's been probably one of our top 2 or 3 D-men all year. He's been impressive.
I'd say so. Do you want to get into Tuesday's game then?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of, I guess where I kind of saw something that I guess was watching the Maple Leafs under Sheldon Keefe for a long time. I always kind of wondered about this, and it was always something that I criticized Sheldon about, talking about like ice time allocation, and specifically with our core guys. Obviously, we know based on how, in terms of the salary cap allocation, this team is going to live or die by what the core does. The core 4 forwards, I could even add Rielly into there. They're making up the vast majority of their cap. And you even called it out earlier with them not scoring enough against Florida. That's obviously going to make or break you every time. And there's no denying that. But I think what I saw on Tuesday was just Keefe, obviously, by default and by requirement, needing to go a little bit deeper with the forward group, giving guys like McMahon, Robertson, Domi, I think, was over 16, 17 minutes. Bertuzzi got more opportunity, got on the power play, where for me, Bertuzzi is a guy who, if you're not getting him on your power play, you're probably not going to see you're not going to see him get 30 goals. He's not an impressive 5-on-5 guy, not the greatest skater. Hands obviously are not very good with the amount of chances he's flubbed. It's getting almost comical right now. But you need to give these guys, and we hit on it a little bit earlier, so I'm not going to dwell on that as much, but you need to give these guys opportunity. I just wonder, and I want to get your obviously perspective here, the ice time allocation. We know that no matter how Nylander, Marner, Rielly, even Brody are playing, they're always going to be over 22 minutes a night. It seems to be the standard. And I just like what I saw Tuesday, where there was more accountability in terms of ice time. If a Timothy Liljegren had a bad shift, his minutes were cut back. We saw him having a couple blunders in period 2, and Keefe cut his ice time back because he's like, look, all these guys that I have available to me are pretty much equal. I've got equal confidence in them. So it's kind of like who's ever playing well will get the ice time. When Marner, Nylander, JT are in there, and it looks like they might be tonight again, it doesn't work that way. It's kind of like Domi. You could have whatever kind of shift. You could be like working your tail off and having a great shift. Yeah, you're not going to be out there more than 12 minutes a night. So where are you on that, and do you see it as a issue going forward?
Well, I see it not as big of an issue as you see it as, but I definitely do see it as an issue because I want to see Domi get 16 a night. I think that you've seen what he can do in the past. Look what he did with Dallas last year in Chicago. When he gets those minutes, he's more impactful, as a lot of skill guys are. So limiting him to 12, 13 a night, PP2, no penalty kill time, where he wouldn't excel anyways. But besides the point, you're just not giving him opportunities to produce, and that's why his numbers are so bad. Right? And also account for his line mates. He's not exactly playing with, Matthews and Marner every night.
No, for sure. That's
definitely the pattern that I have seen even before the sickness to Nylander or Marner and Tavares last game was Domi would get the occasional shift on the top line. Instead of Nyes, if he had a good shift or a good run of play in a period, then he would get some extra shifts with Matthews and Marner on the top line, as a kind of reward, which is what I think you have to do more of with all of those guys in the bottom 6.
Definitely.
So,
And look, I mean, I think in the past, especially before like Bertuzzi was added, Domi, obviously Nyes only came into the picture late in the year last year. It probably for Keefe felt like, okay, well, who am I going to go to? It's if I don't keep playing Matthews and Marner 24 minutes, am I giving Yarncroke, David Kampf more ice time, like Kerfoot? It always felt like maybe he doesn't have enough confidence in those guys. My issue now is, but I think you do have those guys, as you talked about. Max Domi, valuable player for Dallas, who went to the conference finals last year. If he's only playing 10 minutes on your team, I think that's something that the coach has to fix. Because I get it. Keefe probably wants Max Domi to all of a sudden become a great two-way forward and a 180-foot player, but it's never going to happen. It was never happening for him in Chicago, Dallas, when he's played for Columbus, Canadians. That's not who Max Domi is, but he can help you. He can help you, especially when you look at our scoring throughout the year, like with Matthews, Nylander, the percentage that they've made up for our goal scoring. How do you not look down your bench and say, hey, maybe I need to give Domi, Nyes, Bertuzzi more of an opportunity here?
I think that the reason why he hasn't done it is exactly what you just said, is that Matthews and Marner and Nylander, they just keep scoring.
For the most part, for sure.
The more time you give them, the more they're scoring. So what's the need? Like, I guess the circumstances flowed well for this argument on Tuesday because of the lack of Marner and Tavares.
Yeah.
Where now you're like, oh, why don't they play more? Well, it's because if we need a goal late in the game, I want those guys out there.
100%.
I don't care if Marner's played a terrible game.
Right.
If we need a goal and there's a minute and a half left, I want him out there. Because I think that he gives us a better chance of tying the game than Yarncroke would.
No, for sure. I'm not talking about kind of playing Yarncroke and Ryan Reeves when we need to score a goal 2 minutes left. Absolutely not. I'm totally with you there. I think what I'm seeing is if you take the Vegas Golden Knights template, they have obviously high-end skill guys like Jack Eichel, but you look at how they did ice time allocation in the playoffs, and they kind of roll 4 lines, I'm sure when they were down a goal in the third period, late in the third, Jack Eichel was probably seeing more ice time just to try to get them even. But when you're talking about the regular flow of the game, I don't need Mitch Marner and Nylander to be playing 24 minutes against the San Jose Sharks or the Columbus Blue Jackets, unless you're losing, God forbid, to those teams down
Which
2
we
goals.
sadly have been.
And yeah, it does happen because we know we never want to play well against the doormats of the league, of course. But I just feel like your average game, where it's a competitive game, we're not talking about you're down by 2, maybe you're even ahead in the game, which doesn't happen often. But if you are, I want to see, hey, does Bertuzzi and Domi, Matthew Nyes, Nick Robertson, is there anything more we can get from these guys? Or does Tree Living really need to also add a forward? And it's probably a good segue into our final topic, because we're going to talk about potential trade deadline targets and acquisitions. But just to kind of wrap up this topic, I just feel we need more from the other guys. And I don't feel the same way about the guys available to Sheldon right now as I did prior years, where it was like, yeah, I don't want to see Zach Aston Reese or Kerfoot out anymore. So sure, play Matthews 24, play Tavares 21. But now, you know what? There are some games where I see Nylander not back checking on the power play, looking completely gassed. I'm like, you know what? I would want to see Max Domi come out next whistle, not Nylander again, you know?
Yeah. And I think in the ideal case where we're not down early or we don't drop down by 2 or 3 goals, the ice time would look more like 20 minutes for the Matthews line, maybe 17 and a half, 18 for the second line, 16-ish for the third line, and then just give the fourth line the scraps, right?
For sure.
Like, I don't
balance it out.
Yeah, that's what you want, right? Because we saw Bertuzzi, Domi, Robertson. That second line
looked really good. Looked really
amazing. Good. The amount of chances Bertuzzi, he had 4 A+ chances that they highlighted on the broadcast, and Domi was a part of each and every one of them. I thought Robertson played an absolutely stellar game. And
defensively well too, Robertson.
Yeah, and just he's so quick with the stick. Yeah. Like just picking passes off, just back checking super hard. You just see him making plays. And
totally.
He has an amazing shot, like probably top 3 shot on the team.
Yeah.
I would like to see that line stick together moving forward. I don't know what that means.
It won't.
I don't know what that I think they'll play again tonight. I think they'll play together.
I'd like to see it.
I don't know what that means for the second line left wing.
Yeah.
Assuming that Nyes is back with Marner and Matthews on top line. I don't know who plays second line left wing with
right, because if you have Bert there, does that mean do they give McMahon a little bit of a promotion? I don't know.
It would be that could be something that he does, or maybe even just Holmberg. Holmberg had time on the top line earlier this year. That's an easy one, and Holmberg's really defensively responsible as well. So maybe that's him.
Or actually, he did give Noah Gregor an
I don't want to see him on.
I don't want it either. No, we're on the same page here. I don't want to see it, but I don't know if that might be where Keefe goes if you're keeping Bird on line 3.
Yeah, but this could, if you want to segue it into trade targets, if you want to keep this third line together, and this is something that actually works long term.
Yeah.
That means that we need a new top 6 winger, hypothetically.
For sure.
And then all of a sudden, in addition to everybody is clamoring for a top 4D, now we also need a top 6 winger. What does that mean? It could Yarncroke fill that spot? Maybe.
I think we've seen.
Everybody wants to see him there. But
yeah, we saw the Yarncroke on L1 experiment not go very well last year. He was a complete ghost. I think he didn't even get. I think he might have had maybe 1-2 goals the entire postseason, and just he had all the ice time he could handle. Like, I don't like him in a scoring line role. I love him as a bottom 6 winger, not as a top.
So does that make Yarncroke expendable then?
He for sure is, in my mind. But
I think Yarncroke does a lot well. He does really good things on the penalty kill.
Yep.
I think, but since our penalty kill is kind of heating up now, do we really need him? I don't know.
Well, especially if you're going to, like, what they've done is given like Matthews and Nylander some PK time, which I'm not sure if you're going to keep doing that in the playoffs. Now it feels like it's more by default because the penalty kill was terrible through the first like 30 games. But if you feel confident putting Nylander and Matthews out there, then yeah, you start looking at it. Well, Yarncroke at 2.1, David Kampf at 2.4. Both of these guys almost feel expendable, but you do need some more defensive-minded forwards. So unless you're replacing that, yeah, I don't know if you can just give them up for a scoring line winger right now.
Yeah, exactly. Because we saw early in the year how bad the Leafs penalty kill was, but now
horrible
over the last, it feels like 2 months, it's actually been really good. And they showed a number on the broadcast, and I completely forget what it was, but I think it was around 31 of their last 33 they've killed.
Yeah, I remember seeing a stat against the Blues. It's been really heating up for sure.
So that's definitely something that we needed to see an improvement of, and does it kind of co-align with putting Matthews and Marner and Nylander, giving those guys a lot more PK time? I don't know. It kind of does.
Yeah, like I don't think that's ideal. Like as we were talking about with the ice time they're getting, it like if you're getting them on the PK, they're going to be playing 25, 26 minutes some nights. And I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. But if you don't have anyone better who can kill a penalty, yeah, you kind of have to roll with it, I guess. But ideally you find someone, that you can bring in, because I don't think it's coming in from internal. In terms of that option, yeah, you might have to kind of keep throwing them out there.
All right, let me ask you this, because obviously McMahon scored a hat trick, and they said that he wasn't even expected to play before puck drop.
Yeah.
Do you think that he earns a little bit of runway in the lineup now? Or is he still kind of going to be that odd man out when the entire team is healthy?
I mean, he's definitely earned it. I just don't know if all the guys, if Marner, JT, and Nylander, and obviously before we went on air, all we knew was that they were at least on the ice. So we don't know if they're going to play or not. But if we're going to assume that they will, yeah, I think Keefe just goes right back to McMahon. You're playing with, Camp and Revo, and enjoy your 6 minutes of ice time. And if you don't happen to do anything impactful when Yardcroak is available, you're probably a healthy scratch again. So I worry about that, because I kind of, and I'm not sure if that's where you were or what your opinion is, but yeah, I do feel McMahon deserves a little bit more of a runway here. I just don't have confidence in Keefe just based on what we've seen from how Keefe uses young players. And I know McMahon is not really that young, but players from the Marlies, call-ups, they never really get a fair kick at the can, because of what we talked about earlier, because, hey, you're on the third line, you're going to be lucky to see 10 minutes of ice time tonight, no matter how you play. And no matter how the big boys play, they're not going to see a reduction of ice time. So, sorry, Bobby McMahon. I might give you 7 minutes instead of 5, but yeah, I'm still going to go with what I feel more confident, the guys I got faith in, for better or worse, I guess.
Yeah, he played 13 minutes on Tuesday, and obviously
that's a pretty solid goals for per 60, eh?
Yeah,
for the analytics fans.
He also had 6 shots, but more importantly, in my opinion, he had 5 hits.
Yeah, he was physical,
right? And I think that's what you really need on the ice. They know exactly what they're supposed to do, which if he can keep that up, he can form that identity alongside Reeves and Kampf. Could that be a fourth line that we see in playoffs? I think so, right?
For sure. And I don't know what
they just have to form that identity, right?
Agreed. And this is time to do it. And I think I forget what their final hit total was Tuesday night, but I remember seeing after the first period, they had 22 hits already. Like, I can't remember the last time the Leafs had 22 hits in one period of hockey. And you can say coincidence that Marner, Tavares weren't playing, Rielly wasn't playing, but it sounds like Sheldon Keefe is not what's been holding them back from
No,
playing
definitely
a
not.
physical game. So why isn't Keefe saying to himself and kind of to the other assistants, hey, you know what? We need to be physical tonight. We need to get out on the forecheck, dump pucks in, really hammer their D in the corners. That's the type of game we need to play tonight. And I think Philadelphia tonight presents that opportunity where it's going to be a physical game. Philadelphia has a lot of physical players there. You're going to want to be first to the puck. And if you're not, you're going to want to hammer them along the boards. And playing Marner, Nylander 24 minutes probably doesn't allow you to win too many of those physical puck battles. So why wouldn't Keefe say, hey, you know what? This is a game, even if those guys are in the lineup, the core guys, I'm going to try to give McMahon, Bertuzzi, Nyes, and Domi a little bit more run to see if maybe that does that either inspire Marner and Nylander to maybe adapt. I think it's a little bit too late to expect that to happen. They are who they are at this point. But you might have to say, hey, you know what? Marner, Nylander, I can't put you out for 22 plus minutes because look how much we're tilting the ice when the other guys are on, you know? And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that McMahon deserves to get 18 minutes a game now because he got a Hattie in one game, but it might be worth a look. It might be worth kind of experimenting with getting these guys who are obviously very physical, competing hard for pucks, a little bit more runway, to your point.
Yeah, and Philly is going to be – this is going to be a good, really big eye-opening game, in my opinion, because Philly is that team where they're not very talented, like skill-wise, but Torts has them playing so well, and they find a way to win games.
Crazy. Yep.
And so, and they're going to come at you physically. The Leafs and Flyers always have really physical games. I remember last year there was a big fight at the end of one where Konechny was involved with Matthews and everything like that. So even their skill guys in Philly, they're going to come at you with everything they have. They'll hit you with cheap shots. They'll hit you behind the play. Like they'll finish their checks in the corner with like Scott Lawton, everybody like that.
Yeah, Konechny.
Yeah, so
that guy's a tough SOB.
Really interesting to see how the Leafs respond to that, and if they can not just match it, but maybe even assert their own dominance as well, kind of like what we saw in St. Louis. Because if the Leafs are kind of dominating play like that every night, there's no way you're going to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's kind of where I was going and kind of where I'd like to see the team go and start to play a little bit more of that typical game that you see these playoff teams, not so much playing right now, but that's kind of what they're going to bring to the playoff environment.
Yeah, just to see the ability that they can do it. Like they have the ability to play that way. We just need to see that. And the notion online from a lot of fans that Keefe is holding these players back from being physical is a complete sham.
Feels that way after what we saw Tuesday.
Because, even if you just look at the way Keefe played as a player, like when Keefe was in my junior hockey, and then he had like a couple games in the NHL, he was a goon.
Yeah, he was a physical guy.
So I have no doubt in my mind that he is promoting guys, go out there and finish your hits.
Agreed.
You said it earlier. It's who Matthews or not Matthews, but like Marner and Nylander are. They're not that kind of player.
Right. But if you're not getting that, totally agree. But if you're not getting that physical battle for the puck kind of play, and you're either losing the game, you might kind of think if we do kind of say, yeah, we feel Keefe wants them to play that type of game. Why do you keep reverting back to just entrusting Matthews and Nylander to tilt the ice? And I get it. If they were down by 2, different narrative. But if you're in a game like you are tonight, puck drops in the first period, I might want to see more playing time go to Bertuzzi, Nyes, Domi, McMahon, and see if that can help you kind of gain possession, get pucks on net, maybe get some rebounds, get a dirty goal, and then you're kind of opening things up for the Matthews, the Marners, Nylanders to do their thing, because you might have a Philly team who now has to press because they're down a goal early. It just seems like a very obvious changing of a coaching strategy that, and I agree with you, I don't think Keefe is trying to put the reins on them necessarily, but by allocating the ice time the way he is, he sort of is putting that out there. He's making the Leafs a little bit easier of an opponent to play against, because you're not going up against McMahon every other shift. You're going up against Nylander. So you might not have to battle to get that puck back if you're Konechny or you're Garrett Hathaway, who's probably going to be an absolute loose cannon tonight like he always is. Like, you're not going to have to do that if you're the Flyers. So it will be easy for Konechny to push his way to the front of the net, fight off a back check. And that kind of is where, yeah, there's so many positives to take from how we saw things play out on Tuesday that, yeah, I think we're obviously both thinking we want to see more of that. I'm just more of the mindset that even if Marner and Nylander are available, I don't know if I want to see them out 24 minutes tonight, because I don't think that gives us the best chance to win.
No, 100% agree with you. Yes. Yeah. But
okay,
we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game tonight. Looking forward to it. Sounds like Samsonov will get the call again. He'll probably need to be sharp. There'll probably be a lot of pucks around his goal and his crease. Probably get shoved by a couple Flyers forwards. So hopefully the defense can help him out, and we get another solid team defense type of game.
I mean, so I saw the numbers that were 14-2-1 without Rielly last year. Now 15-2-1 if you count Tuesday. So.
Have you been seen throughout his whole career? Like, it's like, if you look throughout all the games he's missed, it's like pretty crazy. We're like 38-18 in something without Rielly. Mind-boggling.
The team likes to play with adversity, I guess, right?
Yeah.
When you're down guys and everybody expects you to actually lose, all of a sudden the team
for sure
starts to show up and we'll start winning games. So
great. Yeah. I found that crazy. And then also they showed when they play it, not that there's been a lot of games, not as many, but without Marner, without Matthews, even JT, Nylander, they don't have a losing record with any of those guys out of the lineup, which again is crazy. And it's not even that small of a sample size. It's like, obviously the Rielly is more significant. He's played here longer, but with the other guys too, it's like, they're like 5-10 games over 500 when Marner or Matthews is in the lineup. And you're like, huh. Interesting. But anyways, so yeah, why don't we move on? Final topic we wanted to hit on that I think is a huge one. We're less than a month away from NHL trade deadline. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk. If you're on social, any player that is said to be available, you get Leaf fans saying, oh yeah, Leafs have to trade for him. He's going to be a Leaf. Obviously, we're probably a little bit more rational. At least I would think I am. We'll soon find out if you are. What are some guys, some names that are out there that either you've heard or maybe even names that haven't been thrown out there that you think might be available that you would like to see True Living add?
Well, like, name a player and the Leafs are probably linked to them in some way.
Always.
Right? It's every single player. I feel like Elliot Friedman's like, the Leafs have taken a look at this D-man, this D-man, this D-man.
Sure.
It seems like the priority is from Tree Living is getting a big-bodied defenseman that will eat minutes and kill penalties.
Yeah. And if he can be a right-handed shot, even better.
Even better, right? And that leads a lot of people to believe it's going to be Tanev, which I personally don't want to see.
Okay.
Injury prone, doesn't exactly pick up the lack of foot speed we have on the back end either.
No, he's not
going
going to speed a foot.
Giordano is too slow. He's more of an 8, I would call him at this point. I'd call Giordano a 7 or 8. We have Benoit, who's not exactly the fastest defenseman in the world. He's more of a 5 or 6. McCabe, He's pretty good. He might be a 4. But that's my point is we don't have a lot of top 2. So my number 1 B target would be Hanifin.
I like it.
Right? You send over a first-round pick and maybe a couple B, C level prospects and potentially get it a little bit retained as well.
Ooh, you're asking for the moon.
I
I only think with Hannafin, it's a first and like a really good prospect because I don't think
Hannafin, who the Flames know is going to leave in the summer,
yeah,
will cost a first in Minton per se. I don't think so.
So you think that could be like a first and like a Niemela type package?
I think it could be maybe more of a first and Steve's type package.
Whoa. See, like, I would be surprised if that gets it done, unless Hannafin says, I'm only going here. And he might, because there's been talk that he doesn't even want to play in Canada anymore. And that's why he doesn't want to re-sign with Calgary. But they've now said, I mean, he's a Boston guy. So they've said, well, Toronto is closer to Boston than Calgary. So they feel he might be open to it, but we don't know. But I think with Hannafin, if you have the chance to go to the Bruins, you're probably going to, that will be your preference.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Bruins always make a big splash, so I could see them being in on Hannafin.
I definitely
just think you need a bigger return to get Hannafin because you're not going to be the only one bidding. If Tanev, if his asking price, and I don't think the Flames will get it, but they're asking for a first from Tanev.
And that's crazy. Give up a first for Tanev. You can't.
Definitely not.
If you're tree living and you give up a first for Tanev, then automatically you're
fire him right there.
I agree. It's because you see, I feel like every night he's leaving the ice to some sort of.
But he comes back.
Bumper bruise. Yeah, but it's a risk, and we saw this risk taken on Nick Foligno a couple years ago, and it didn't work out. Right? Yeah. Nick Foligno was kind of battling injuries, but the Leafs were like, he's exactly the presence we need in the locker room and on the ice, and it didn't work out. He was injured the entire season.
It's risky, no doubt. I mean, I like Tanev for the shot blocking and the PK.
Yeah. Which I don't think he really moves the chains all that much, to be honest. If more of a defenseman, I said Hannafin. Another one would be Alexiak from the Kraken or Larson. One of those two.
Those guys.
Big bodies, kill penalties, hit people, block shots. And Larson has a little bit more offensive upside into his game as well, which is good.
And he's a right shot. Shot. I think the money on Larson, I think he's like $4 million for, I think it's at least one and might even be 2 more years after. So that's.
And Alexiak is good. A Toronto boy as well. So it could work out like that. So those would be more my style. I don't know if the Kraken are willing to part with either of them.
Probably not right now because they're still in the hunt. So you might have to wait on that a little bit.
Right now, they're 12th in points percentage in the West, which puts them, But
on the outside,
the 13 through 15 in the 13 through 16 in the West is terrible.
Yeah,
they're in that middle pack, but they're at the bottom of the middle pack, right? So
and I think Francis, their GM, has to decide in probably the next week even, am I going for it with this team? Am I maybe buying? Do I just kind of ride it out with this group? Or do I try and sell? Because they've got a lot of guys that I think will have interest. The two you mentioned. Also, Will Borgen on defense, a physical, more of a bottom pair guy would be nice. Jordan Eberle is being talked about a lot. Possible Edmonton reunion, I keep hearing. So they have a lot of guys. Alex Wenberg. They have a lot of guys that people will be after.
The Kraken have a lot of middle six guys.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it takes up their entire team. But
very true. Yeah.
I feel like the roster is full of guys that would fit in the Leafs middle six, right?
Yeah.
Even if you splurge a bit and you say, okay, what would it cost to get a Larson Tolvanen package? What would it cost? Because I don't think that the Leafs have any untouchables. Cowan would be the closest I would come to an untouchable.
Yep.
Tolvanen is super young, first round pedigree. Is the prototypical kind of developing into that power forward, right? He hits,
Yep.
he can score goals, has a good shot. That could be a perfect second line guy for the foreseeable future. And then you have a Larson who would be the perfect complement to Brody as not Brody, Rielly as your top pair.
Rielly, for sure. I think he would fit well. The other guy I think would fit well, and I'm just worried about the contract like everyone is Parayko. Because I think because of his contract, and I know he didn't have, if he was trying to convince Tree Living to trade for him, Tuesday was not his best performance to convince Tree Living to come after him. He had that horrible ghost kind of defensive play against McMahon, I think on McMahon's first goal.
Yeah.
But I just like him. Right shot. I know he's a big guy, so everyone assumes he's physical. He's not physical. That's not the way he plays, but he kills penalties, got an absolute piss missile for a shot. So I think he'd help us on the power play. You could probably use him there. I don't know how accurate his shot is. It's not very accurate, but at least he has a good clapper, which we need. I would like him to go after Parayko because I would think that the Blues would be happy to get out of that contract.
But would they be willing to retain any? Because I don't think the Leafs have – I don't think they have the space or the capability to move around $6.5 million this year.
Agreed. You would have to move someone like Brody. You'd have to give them Brody, but then obviously that's going to make whatever else you have to add to it substantially more.
But then it comes down to, is Parayko that much of an upgrade over Brody? How much of an upgrade? How much of an upgrade is he over Brody, where now you're locked in at 6.5 for the next 4 years?
Over Brody 2022? No. Brody right now, I think Parayko's a massive upgrade.
I thought Brody actually played super well on Tuesday.
Playing on the left side, he looked
I thought he looked a lot better.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But of course, when Rielly comes back, he's back to the right.
But let's say hypothetically he looks really good on his natural left side for the next 4 games.
Yeah.
Are we assuming he's back or?
I hope he wouldn't be, but then who goes into the top pair? Like, I don't think Keefe likes Lily. He's gotten that opportunity, and I don't think he's bad necessarily, Liljegren, but Keefe obviously has something against him. He doesn't like his game, so he's not going to the top pairing. McCabe isn't going there because I think he likes the Benoit McCabe pairing.
Yeah.
So at that point, you really don't have any options. So I do think Brody goes right back there no matter how he does.
Unfortunately. So, well, another guy I liked that would fit the middle six that we spoke of earlier was Anthony Duclair. Scored 30 goals 2 years ago, had that unfortunate injury. Then he comes back last year in the playoffs and actually played super well.
Yeah,
I think I wrote down his stats from last year's playoffs. He had 11 points in 20 playoff games.
That's nice. That's okay.
And he went all the way to the cup final. He's got that experience.
Yeah, and I don't think the cost to acquire would be crazy.
And exactly. He only has 9 goals this year.
Yeah.
He's not exactly what you would say a game breaker. No. But I think he's the perfect complementary piece to a second line.
Well, I think he also might be a UFA, is he not?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Pending UFA, where
Sharks can't be expecting much for him.
He's a pure rental.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe you could even send over a little bit extra if the Sharks are willing to take on Camp's contract.
Ooh. If you could find someone to take the Camp contract, I don't know what I would pay, but it would be a lot. Like if someone just said, I will take it, I will absorb without you retaining, I will absorb the remaining 3 times 2.4, just give me like a 3rd round pick, I'm in. I think, and I know it might be a little bit harsh, but I think he's been terrible, Camp, this year.
I think the only thing he does well is win faceoffs.
But he doesn't though, because he's like 51%, which is okay. But if you're paying a guy 2.4 to be your defensive zone starts, like your defensive zone faceoff guy, your PK guy, and you're 51%, and you're not physical, you're a complete zero offensively. Like, what the hell are we paying this guy for?
And I look at it as Holmberg is Camp, but a third of the cost.
And more talented.
And more offensive upside, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what we're paying this guy for.
I don't know what it would cost, but maybe you do a Camp. What is it? Maybe Camp a third and one of these C-level prospects that are fringe NHLers, but just destroying the AHL right now, like a Steves or an Abruzzese.
Yeah,
right. The Sharks kind of need all of that, all of the talent that they can get. Maybe you kind of throw them a bone here and say, here, just take the Camp contract and we'll give you a little extra.
No, agreed. And I think, when you, if you're on like social and you start like hearing all these fans, maybe obviously more delusional than you and I, who start saying, yeah, the Leafs are going to get player X, player Y, no problem. And then obviously the counter, the rebuttal is always, why do these delusional Leaf fans always think they're going to get all these guys? You have no cap room. My counter to that is always like, have a look at the type of trades that were made at the trade deadline last year. With all these teams, whether it's Arizona, Anaheim, these bad teams that obviously aren't contending, they're totally willing to take on your bad contracts if you make it worth their while. So the whole concept of if you don't have cap room, you're not in play for guys like Hanifin, Parayko, even a guy that I kind of wouldn't mind, or two guys at forward are Boone Jenner, Adam Henrique. Like, yeah, you would say, well, you don't have the money to get them. But a team like Columbus, a team like Anaheim, the Blues, even for Parayko, they won't really care about absorbing a bad contract. Yeah, they probably wouldn't want 3 more years of David Camp at 2.4, but Brody...
Are they really going to contend in the next 3 years? Like, does it really matter?
No, but... And 2.4 might not be like that tough to eat, but I'm sure at 3 years, they'd probably say, yeah, maybe we have to get some other team to help broker the deal. We'll take 50% of it. If we can get some other team to take 25 and the Leafs retain 25, maybe that could work. But example like Brody, he's a UFA. So you're not doing anything with your cap space between now and the trade deadline. So why wouldn't you take Brody if it means the Leafs are also giving you a first, a third, maybe a good prospect for your Colton Parayko?
The thing is also with Brody is that he has a partial no move.
He does.
Unfortunately, it seems like everybody on the Leafs has some sort of no move.
Thank you, Kyle.
So, no, even Tree Livings, Domi, Bertuzzi, those guys have like partial no moves.
Nylander got it. Even David Kampf. David Kampf has a no move.
Yeah. So,
why?
But the good thing is that it's only like 10 teams.
It's modified. Yeah.
In the case that he submits his 10 teams and the Sharks are on it, then you're kind of out. Then the Sharks wouldn't be able to take
for sure.
Kind of stuck because the whole thing with Duclair is that he costs $3 million, right? So when a guy costs like that much, and for the Leafs, that means one of two things: it's going to be Kampf or it would be Yarncroke.
Correct. Yeah.
Because those are the guys that's the closest in money, or Brody. Yeah.
And I think there's options, like there's been some people speculating about like, would they move like Samsonov's money? Could they find someone to take Ryan Reeves because there's not a lot of money there? It's just, you got to take him for an additional 2 years, but 1.35 is not going to break too many of these teams and Reeves, to your point, aren't competing.
He's entirely variable after this year.
Exactly.
So I don't think,
but I mean, at 1.35, not going to move the needle.
Yeah, not a lot of teams want to pay that though, right? But
no.
I think Ryan Reeves knows his role perfectly. And I think that he's actually a really good locker room guy to have with the team to keep everybody kind of, because I feel like even though he's a fourth line guy, he's not afraid to speak up and tell the first line guys, like, what are you guys doing out there?
Yeah, see, I actually love that take because all I've heard all year, especially earlier in the year when, yes, Ryan Reeves, it felt like anytime he was on the ice,
they were scoring.
The puck went in the back of our net. But you didn't ever hear anyone blame David Camp as much. It was always like, oh my God, get Ryan Reeves out of here. Like, he's not even fighting. He's a liability defensively. Get him out of here. And I was like, look, like there's an issue with like how the fourth line is being used, because it felt like Ryan Reeves would literally just get on the ice and he'd just be skating towards the defensive zone and the puck was going in the net. Yes, at the end of that period of time, he ended up being a -10. So it was easy to say, no, Ryan Reeves is the issue. But I'm like, what are you expecting from Ryan Reeves? He's not going down to block a shot. He's not going to go in there and like prevent goals from happening. You've paid David Camp 2.4 to be your shutdown defensive guy. He's more the guy who's like accountable for it. And look, since Ryan Reeves has got back into the lineup, I thought he's played very well.
I thought he's looked
he's
really
been fine.
good. It's almost as if a 36-year-old guy needs a little bit of time off. You know, he's really old.
Sure.
His knees are like shot.
Clearly, yeah. As long as you know what you're going to get from Ryan Reeves, and I think that was where I found issue with, you know, those takes from people like, oh, get Ryan Reeves out of here. It's the worst signing ever. Like, do you watch the other guys that have played on our fourth line? Like, except for what he did on Tuesday with the Hattie, guys like McMahon, guys like David Camp, it's not like they're moving the needle very much.
No,
like, except Ryan Reeves for what he is. Like, yeah, he's got to know what his role is. And if Keefe is only going to play him 4 minutes a game, don't expect him to come out for that 1 or 2 shifts every game and make a significant impact. Like, yeah, I don't want to see him out there for 12 minutes a night, but a game like tonight against Philly,
7 minutes.
Give him 7 to 8 for sure.
He jumps out there and just throws the body around. That's all he needs to do.
Yeah. Throw a few haymakers at Garrett Hathaway. Why not?
Exactly.
Fun.
But he's definitely not an every night guy. And in the playoffs, I don't think he'll be an every game guy.
It would be tough. It'll be interesting to see how they use him come playoff time. I can see him being a tone setter in game 1. Yeah. But as the series goes on, it would be more of a Gregor that gets in. Yeah, I think it also depends on if we add anything. Like, it's hard to say they are definitely 12 forwards who, without a shadow of a doubt, you would play over Ryan Reeves. I'm like, sure, yeah. Right now, I'd probably play Robertson and McMahon over him, but it's not like crazy obvious.
I think no matter what, he's in game 1. No matter what. Yeah, especially if you're going up against like Florida or the Bruins. Yeah. Yes.
He's in there. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So I think it would be better if the Leafs drop into that first wildcard spot.
And play the Rangers.
Deal with the
Rangers.
Deal with 100%. The Metro right away.
Yeah, I've been saying that for a while. You won't hear me saying we want Florida this year. That's for sure. That won't be coming out of my mouth, and hopefully I
wanted Boston last year.
For sure. I wanted Boston over Florida.
For
the revenge factor.
Just for revenge. For the revenge.
I'm like, we're probably going to lose, but I want it. and
it's always exciting hockey.
100%.
It's always good hockey. Yeah.
All right, man. I think we're kind of at the end, but this was really fun. I don't know if we actually had anyone viewing the show. I don't think too many people, but hopefully people can find it on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah.
And drop their comments, and we can kind of see what they thought about us. And hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, for sure. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Have a good one. See you, man.
Bye.